Well, I'm coming to you from the Barlow house. We're here to talk another Salem's Lot. Does he have anything to say? Is it gonna suck? Let's talk about it. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's Max review of Salem's Lot, the newest film from director Gary Dauberman. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a new rendition, probably the 85th rendition of Salem's Lot, based on the famous Stephen King story. This, of course, is a story about a character named Ben Mears, who, of course, goes back to his town of Jerusalem's Lot, or Salem's Lot, as they call it. And basically, it's a retelling of the story about how Ben Mears and the people around Salem's Lot are basically inhabited by a vampire named Barlow and his, of course, individual who takes care of him called Starker. And as the story goes, people start becoming vampires. The crowd that still hasn't been turned starts to kind of wonder what's going on, which leads to the ultimate showdown between Barlow and the inhabitants of Salem's Lot. So therefore, it's a upgraded, basically a brand new version of that story that Stephen King wrote that's very, very famous at this point. Now, on the adaptation front of this famous story, it's not been very good, to be fairly honest. People like the 70s, I think, miniseries. They think it's pretty well put together. I'm not a big fan of it, to be fairly honest. The Rob Lowe movie miniseries, or whatever that was a pretty big bad pile of garbage, which I don't really like to call things garbage, but it was not very good. But this new Salem's Lot had a lot of promise. Though it's from the writer of The Nun. He also wrote, of course, It chapters 1 and 2, which were actually pretty well put together films, especially the first one. And this is a movie that has had a lot of issues when it comes to its release dates, because it was supposed to originally release in theaters, and Warner Brothers was bought out by Discovery, and it almost didn't even see the light of day, and so on and so forth. So, I wanted to see this movie because I think, it had a lot of intriguing people in it, a lot of intriguing ideas, and, when you update Stephen King stories, especially in this modern age, they've been pretty good for the most part, like Dr. Sleep, and Gerald's Game, the list goes on and on. It chapter 1. So it's been a pretty good run for Stephen King. And then of course you have stuff like The Dark Tower, which that's a whole different ball of wax, bees, or whatever you want to call it. But I went into this very optimistic. I really wanted to see this. I thank you to Max and the people that work over there for allowing me to see this early. As you can see, this review post early of this movie release on Max, I think October 3rd. And so my honest opinion of this movie, my honest feeling of this movie, this is probably one of the worst films I've seen this year. Now, let me preface this by saying I did not go into this movie wanting to hate this movie at all. I was not a huge fan of the other adaptations. I haven't read the book in quite a while, so my ideas of what happens in this movie might be a little different than what I can remember. But what I can tell you about this movie, this film from Gary Dauberman, and Stephen King being the executive producer, and this new adaptation, for an hour and 50 minutes, yes, this movie's an hour and 53 minutes long, somehow, some way, in some form or fashion, they took the story of Salem's Lot, the writer, the director, the people that worked on this film, and made something so incoherent, something so baffling, bizarre, something without story, and somehow thought this was a good idea. This movie's baffling nature of trying to tell this story is so off-putting that I was kind of wondering, was I even watching a real thing? I mean, maybe I'm imagining this. Maybe I'm in a fever dream or something like that. And what I mean by that is this movie basically took the story of Salem's Lot, took everything out that made the story make sense, whether it be character development, how they knew who Barlow was, the choices that they make, the idea, the simple fact that Ben Mears is barely a character. Anyone in this movie is barely a character. When the vampire kills start happening, it happens so succinctly and so quickly that nothing is like making your head spin. Like, nobody in this movie gets any type of development at all, and it's such a weird choice to make this into something so kind of what am I watching, to be fairly honest? I feel so bad for anybody who was in this movie because it almost feels like they cut out like an hour and a half, almost half this movie to shorten it to an hour and 53 minutes. I don't know what happened here, but nothing in this movie makes any sense. No choices make sense. The fact that they figure out who Starker and Barlow is doesn't make any sense. The main kid in this movie just kind of knows, and just kind of comes out of nowhere, and then other character just kind of knows that people are turning into vampires, and it's a really weird, off-putting movie. And I just was like wondering, is this a movie that is making fun of the story? Is it making fun of us for watching it? And I don't know what happened here, but it's one of the sorriest excuses of a story I've seen in quite a while. And even Barlow's makeup, I guess, is very CGI looking. There's a lot of CGI looking shots. This movie is not very good looking when it comes to its like photography, like, you know, the way it's shot. It looks very 2000s in a lot of respects, with the kind of glossy nature, kind of VHS feel to it. You know, the characters just is weird, like the way that, you know, Susie and Ben meet and how that story plays out. There's like plot threads that are kind of thrown in there and they just kind of drop quickly. People get turned into vampires and they drop quickly, and then like people that you just kind of stumble into the movie, like Spencer Treat Clark, just kind of happen, and there's no justification to that. There's no sitting down to like find out more about Barlow walking into a shop, which they don't do. And there's stuff with Susie's mom, which is, I'm sure, in the book, and, you know, with her character, and nothing makes sense there. Just people do things that are so illogical that it makes me wonder if there's even a script involved, like whether this movie was shot without a script during the writer's strike, which I'm pretty sure it wasn't, because I think this movie was made before the writer's strike. But it feels like one of those like Transformers Revenge of the Fallen situations where you're watching this movie and then you realize, are you really watching a movie, or are you just watching a set of scenes that couldn't be like reconfigured or rewritten because of some reasons or logic? Or, you know, if it was like a scripting problem during like during the pandemic or during, you know, the writer's strike, I can definitely understand why a movie like this would be as bad as it is. But I don't think that's what happened here. I just don't think Gary Dauberman he didn't make a coherent script, and he didn't make a coherent story. So I almost wish that this movie had just been kind of thrown by the wayside, that had been written off in taxes or something like that. Because if we're getting this film and this type of movie, but we're not getting like the Coyote and Acme movie, it just makes me wonder where the priorities lie with Warner Brothers, because this is a travesty of a adaptation. This is one of the worst adaptations for a Stephen King movie I've seen in a long time. Like, once again, Dark Tower is probably the last time I saw something that was really bad. You know, this is like in that Dreamcatcher territory where it has so much promise. It has a lot of interesting characters that they just don't know what to do with. So I don't know. I don't know what happened here. I don't know why it did what it did, but it's not a very good movie. It's actually a pretty terrible movie, and it's unfortunate because it could have been something special. It had a lot of promise, and once again, it's from one of the writers of It Chapter 1, so unfortunately did The Nun too, and Annabelle, so take that for what it's worth. I don't hate on Gary Dauberman. I just think he just made a very bad movie, so, you know, I think it is his first directorial effort, so maybe something made better in the future, but for right now, Salem's Lot, one of the worst things I've seen this year. So there you go. Anyways, with that said, that'll do it. That'll be my take on Salem's Lot, which will be on HBO Max or however you want to look at it very, very soon. So check out there if you're interested. But otherwise, yeah, comments below. What is your favorite part about Salem's Lot? Do you like Salem's Lot? All that good stuff. Let me know why. But otherwise, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out, guys.